Parenting is hard. Few of us feel up to the task. The world is shifting, quickly and dramatically. All of us feel the changes affecting our families. The stress and pressure can be intense. We're here to help sort the good and the bad, provide insight, and bring hope. Welcome to Brilliantly Brave Parenting. We're so glad you stopped by.
Hi, I'm Pastor Brad Mathias. I want to welcome you to Brilliantly Brave Parenting.
That's what we are, right?
Yeah, well, not really.
No,
it's sort of tongue-in-cheek, as they say, Robert.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So, Robert Beeson and I are here in the studio, just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and we are on, believe it or not, episode 88.
It's hard to believe. 7 seasons, and we just keep on coming back to this.
88 episodes of Brilliantly Brave Parenting, and I am always...
The benefit of doing 88 is your guests just keep getting bigger and bigger and better, and this week is no exception. I'm really excited about this.
I am too. I'm a little bit of a, Navy SEAL fan.
You told me you were in the Navy SEALs.
I did not. No,
I think you did.
No, I don't even have a tattoo.
I remember you telling people.
I don't have anything to back that up with. But I do know that there are men out there who are putting their lives on the line.
Yes.
For freedom.
Quite literally.
Yeah, literally. And the last decade or two has not been kind to the world. Mm. And so those sort of men are heroes.
Absolutely.
And they should be celebrated as such. And I think in our culture, it's important that we take the time to notice that.
To recognize that, yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
One of the other things that I think is really important is that there's a lack of healthy role models today for sons and for families. And one of the things that you and I have a heart for as pastors and ministry leaders is to sort of illustrate and provide a platform for men who are making a difference in their sphere of influence.
That's right.
And today we have a very special guest that is doing all of those things and probably a whole lot more, actually, than we even know. And our guest today is Remi Adeleke. Welcome, Remi.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. Thank you so much. Yeah. Just so much respect for your story and love the book and just I don't even know where to start. There's so many facets to your life, but why don't you just kind of kick us off into your story and how you got to where you are right now?
Okay, yeah, that's easy. But it kind of starts with my dad. My dad was a well-known Nigerian engineer, philanthropist, businessman. He was the firstborn son to my grandfather. My grandfather had 9 wives, and he kept on having girls. And then finally, through my grandmother, one of his wives, he had my dad. And my dad, being the firstborn son, naturally inherited the title of chief.
This is in Nigeria, right? In
Nigeria, yep. And also our last name, which is Adeleke. Ade means crown, Leke means is above. So my dad was essentially born into Yoruba, which is our tribe, Yoruba royalty. He ended up getting a full ride scholarship to study engineering to London because he was a savant, and he got his master's in architecture and engineering in London.
Wow.
And then he built massive enterprises in the West, not just in London, but in New York City. He was one of the first Black men on the board of the World Trade Center in New York City.
Wow.
The Planning Council in Great Britain, he was the first Black man on that board. So he was just, very ahead of his time. And, after a certain amount of time, he decided, I need to go back to Nigeria to reestablish Nigeria to be a beacon for all the world to look to, especially with all the resources that Nigeria has with cocoa and oil and other and natural gas as well. And so he went back, and that's where he built his businesses. And by the time I had come along, my dad had started to build one of the first man-made islands in the world, which exists to this day, and it's known as Banana Island. And it's an island where billionaires and millionaires own nice plots of land with their mansions and houses on them. But in 1987, the Nigerian government, being historically corrupt, decided, you can't have this anymore. And they took his assets from him. He had invested millions of dollars in the Banana Island, pretty much every penny he had. And my dad just mysteriously died a few days later. and we ended up going from rich to poor. And that was when my beginnings started as far as America. My mom, she being in America, she was just like, there's no way I'm raising my kids here in Africa. So she permanently relocated my brother and I to the United States, and I grew up in the Bronx.
Wow. What an incredible story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening to this and I'm thinking about your book, Transformed, and the themes that can clearly emerge here. You really are the coming to America story in the sense of Nigerian royalty, and you land on New York, and you have to sort of make sense of life, right?
Yeah,
you've got to make sense of that, and there's got to be just a tremendous amount of confusion and anger, frustration.
How old were you when you came to America?
I was 5.
5, wow.
5 years old. Do you remember that clearly?
You know what? What I do remember is the transition being seamless. So it wasn't like a culture shock for my brother and I. And I think the reason why that was because my mom, she was just a master at, and I don't want to say putting on a mask in a bad way, but putting on a mask in a good way. She knew that she had to hide the reality of what had happened, because if she didn't, then we would break down as her 2 boys. And then if we broke down and she would break down, it would just create this never-ending cycle. And so I'll never forget the day she told me my dad died. She placed my brother on her right side and placed me on her left side. And she just said it's such a calming demeanor, your dad's gone, he's not coming back, that my brother and I just looked at each other as if nothing happened and went back to playing as if nothing happened. But, that's just a snapshot of what our life was like under my mom. She did a great job at protecting us, not putting on a better word, instead of using putting on a mask, protecting. She did a good job of protecting us from the reality. And the analogy I often use is it was as though my mother created a movie set. And on the movie set, everything seemed as good as it could be. But outside and off of that set, like there was, chaos. We were in the Bronx. My mom struggled, tremendously financially. There were times when she didn't have enough food to feed herself. She had just enough food to feed my brother and I. There were times when we would go to the rent office with her and she would have to, beg for extra time to pay the rent. Me and my brother, there were times when my mom didn't have enough for us. And me and my brother, she would give me and my brother a big bar of Ivory soap, and we would wash our underwears and socks in the sink, and then hang them up to dry on the shower hanger or the shower rod. So my mom did hide the reality, but as I got older, I began to realize what was actually going on.
Yeah, as I'm thinking about that, Robert, you're the head of a ministry, a national ministry, Solo Parents Society.
Yeah.
This has got to be right in there with one of the most challenging things a parent can go through.
Absolutely. I mean, raising kids on your own is so difficult. And it's so, I seriously think that single parents are like superheroes in disguise. I mean, it really is. You're trying to be strong and you feel devastated already because of everything you're facing, feel inadequate and able to provide or to be stable. And frankly, you don't feel stable yourself. So, you're supposed to be 2 parents and you don't feel like you're even good enough to be 1. So I that's an amazing story and testament to the fact that, on the other side of all this, because one of the things that we know from single parent homes is the tragic outcomes, of incarceration and chemical dependency is like, it's so much more prevalent coming from single parent homes. And I think you're just a great example of how things can go right and how it's worth to persevering and really fighting for your kids. And because you went on, then you got involved in military and walk us through that, like how that. I mean, it's a fascinating and incredible story to this point, but that wasn't done.
Yeah, well, things didn't go right on my end, as you touched on. As I got older, in my teenage years, I got involved in selling drugs. I got involved in, high-level illegal scams, anything to make money to survive. I started a record company that I would essentially launder illegal money through, to kind of protect myself to a certain extent. So I was deep in organized crime, if that's the word we use. What ultimately led me into the military was I got involved in a deal with a drug dealer that went really, really bad. I sold him some products that were supposed to last for a certain amount of time. They only lasted for a fraction of that time. And he came to my mother's house, mother's apartment, knocked on the door and essentially threatened my life. And my mom was just a few rooms down, so her life was in essence threatened as well. After, I made him his money back, which was the next day, I decided, you know what, I can't do this life anymore, because if I keep going down this path, I'm gonna end up dead or in prison. Fast forward 6 months later, I didn't do anything for 6 months. I just felt this presence, and I truly believe it was the Lord telling me I needed to get out of here. I needed to join the military. And that, there's more to the story. I don't want to give it all away. It's all in the book, but that's what ultimately led me to the military. But there was a problem. I had 2 warrants out for my arrest. But I met a recruiter who, she believed in me. She saw the potential in me when other people didn't. And she, took me to both judges to get my record expunged. And then she went a step further and fudged the paperwork to sneak me into the Navy. And that's how I got in the Navy.
It's crazy. I do know, from personal experience, I got in the music business and I was pretty obsessed with just myself and my pursuits and my pleasure and, money and that kind of thing. And it took some pretty tragic things for God to get my attention. And I can tell you that I was transformed through that process. Yeah. And it's not something that I would wish on anybody else. But it is one of those things that leaves a mark that you will forever carry forward. And I know you did, because you had a successful military career, became a Navy SEAL, which is just remarkable. Like Brad was saying in the open, so much respect for the heroic bravery and just, the dedication to sacrificially, lay your life on the line for others is just something that is part of your transformation, I'm sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely.
So, Remi, I've got some questions for you as a pastor. There are a lot of people out there who are like, I'm not heroic. I don't have the courage you have. I've blown it. I've failed as a dad. I've failed as a son. And they're tempted to sort of just flush their life. You know what I'm talking about? Where people are just, they're at the bottom. I can guess that there had to be a moment or two in your life where you felt that way, but something really helped you push through. Was that your faith? Was that something with supernatural bent, or how did that happen?
It depends on what part of my life you're referring to.
Well, I think,
try to answer the question right.
Yeah, now I'm guessing that it occurred maybe at different times, that there were probably seasons in your life where you just were tempted to give in or give up.
Never.
No.
There was no.
Okay.
There was no, and that's why I was asking which would, there was never a point where I was just like, even now, when I reflect back on my life, I ask myself, man, dude, like, how did you go through all of the things you went through? Like, how did you do it? Like, I have to ask myself that question because I still can't believe the things that I've gone through to get to where I'm at today. And what I do know is that, my mom, going back to my mother, she was an extremely hard worker. She would work multiple jobs to provide for my brother and I. And she was the epitome of perseverance. And through osmosis, that just became a part of my nature. It was second nature to me to just, when I have a setback or even when I do dumb stuff that I shouldn't do, to not do well on that, but to just keep pushing forward and keep charging forward. So there was never a point in my life where I was just like, during that transition, going from New York to the Navy and then trying to get in it through SEAL training and all of that stuff, where I was like, I doubted myself or, I thought about quitting or giving up. It was just like, I think I'm so much of a knucklehead that I just bump my head and I'll just keep going,
So you would attribute that to watching your mom persevere for well over a decade. Is that?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And because I didn't know the Lord, you got to remember, I didn't come to faith in Christ until I was 26. So, if we're talking like prior to 26, I didn't, I I'm sure the Lord knew me, and he had equipped me and gifted me, and he gave me the mother he gave me, and so that I could be skilled to get to where I'm at. But just from a surface level standpoint, it was my mom. It was my mom's lessons that stuck with me, to keep pushing, never give up, regardless of how hard you're struggling or what you're going through, how many setbacks you have, or how big the giant is in front of you. You punch him in the face and you just keep moving. Or you take the beat that he's going to give you, get back up again.
Wow. So at some point then at 26, you had a moment of awareness where some people would call that epiphanies, others might call it a salvation moment. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I reached a point in my life where I gained too much success. And success can be dangerous if you don't know how to handle it, because it leads to uncontrollable pride. And my pride was just through the roof. Here I was, this guy that made it from Africa, made it through the Bronx, made it through SEAL training. I have girlfriends all over the place. I have a girlfriend I'm supposed to be faithful to. I have, a nice car, a nice apartment. I have money, legal money for the first time in a long time. A lot of legal money for the first time in my entire life. And, all of that kind of, it brought me to the bottom without giving away too much. It's all in the book, but it brought me to the bottom. And when I hit that rock bottom and I tried, New Age religious practices to fix myself, I tried forcing my own will to fix myself. I tried meditation to get rid of the guilt and the shame and all of the things that I had, incurred from the decisions I made and from the people that I hurt. When I tried those things and none of them worked, that's when I was just like, okay, I need to try something else. And my brother had been a Christian for a long period of time, and he would tell me from time to time, Remi, when you hit rock bottom, just remember to cry out to Jesus, And so when I hit that rock bottom moment, that's essentially what I did. I cried out to Jesus, and it was through that ounce of faith that he came into my life, and everything transformed, exponentially. I immediately gave up sex. I had been either having sex or watching pornography from this age of 16. I had immediately given that up. I had stopped partying, I had stopped drinking, I had stopped, everything cold turkey, and just started walking with the Lord. And there were people in my life who they couldn't believe it. They were just like, Remi, what happened to you? What's going on, dude? Like, what's the deal? We're not going out. Like, dude, this is not you. This is not you. Like, and I was just like, man, I just had an encounter with Jesus when he came in, and he did a work in my life, and I don't want to live the way I used to live anymore, man. And that was my simple response. So that's how it all kind of came together. I know I'm giving you a brief version of it, but again, it's all really detailed out in my book.
Interesting. Robert, you got any thoughts, questions?
Well, I think it's remarkable, your story, the entire pathway. And it's interesting, God's pursuit of us is not conditional on our behavior so often. His love and concern and pursuit of us, it travels with us through the bad choices we make, through the constructive things that we do. And I think, this idea of being transformed, if you go from, being, as you were talking, I was thinking, what would your life have been like had your mom not been a single mom raising you? I mean, if you would have grown up in royalty in Nigeria, it would have looked different. Yeah. And so
completely different. And I know that for a fact because I have half siblings. My dad was married before he married my mom, and he had got divorced. And, my older siblings are about 10, 15 years older than me. And they're completely different people. They all went to boarding school in London, and they all have English accents. And, they are all like totally different from me. You know what I mean? And they live the privileged life, and which is nothing wrong with that. But, I thank God that, it sounds weird, but I thank God that things happen the way they happen, where I lost my dad. I didn't have that privileged life, because I would definitely not be the man I am today if I had all of the things that they had.
Yeah.
Period. Point blank.
Remi, was your mom was a believer in Christ? Was she a Christian?
Yes, she was.
Okay.
Yep.
So when you were growing up, did that include going to church?
Yeah, it did. It did early on. I would say, from 5 to about 13. And I hated it, because for a few reasons. One, I hated waking up early on Sunday when I knew I was going to have to wake up early Monday through Friday to go to school. And I never was an early bird. Two, I would get in trouble for falling asleep in the church. And 3, for me, I saw a lot of hypocrisy in the church. I saw a lot of hypocrisy even at a young age. And because of that, as soon as I got to the age where my mom couldn't make me go to church anymore, I stopped going.
Yeah. So flash forward. You've been in the movies. You're acting. You've been through Navy SEALs. You've got a career now. You have a family as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you've written this book, Transformed. You're doing the media circuit. You've been on TV. You've been around the game. What is the end game? What is your goal in writing this book? What was the focus?
I think I had a few goals. One, I wanted kids who come from where I came from, or from environments that I come from, or the similar environments that I came from, to read my book, see themselves and say, wow, Remi could achieve the things that he's achieved, and there's no excuse why I can't. There's no excuse why I shouldn't be able to make it out of Compton or South Side of Chicago or, certain parts of Houston, Dallas. Like, I should be able to make it out and get somewhere because Remi did, and me and him have a similar path, similar beginnings. So that's as I was writing that's who I had in mind throughout the majority of the book. Also, just I wanted people who have gone through a failure in life to see that a failure is not the end all be all, because in my book, you'll notice that I failed over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. But I just kept picking myself back up and saying, I don't care if I failed. I'm just going to do it again. I'm going to keep trying. And one thing you'll notice is I began to learn how to take those failures and derive lessons from them, and then take those lessons and use them for my success. So I wrote that for another group of people I wrote the book for were those who are experiencing failure in their life, or have a dream that, and on the road towards their dream, they failed at a major checkpoint. And now they're considering giving up, which is probably almost every person on earth, if you're a human being, right? So that's another group I wrote it for. And then, there's a big relationship piece in the book towards I would say, the beginning of the third act of the book. And that was important for me because, as I said earlier, I was a terrible womanizer. I treated women horribly. I slept around with all different women, and so the only woman I have ever been faithful to in my entire life is my wife. And that's because after I gave my life to Christ, I stayed single for 3 years, and then I met my wife, and after 3 years of being single, and then we got married, and she's the only woman I've ever been faithful to. And so I wrote the book for women because I wanted women to pick it up, read it, see some of the girls, see themselves in some of the girls that I used to date and how I treated them, and say, wow, like this is me. I need to walk away from this relationship because I deserve better and I am better. And I can't stay in this relationship with this guy who I suspect he's cheating on me, or this guy who's lying to me, or this guy who's not treating me as a queen, as every woman should be treated, And so, that was a big rock in my shoe as I was writing, was just, I need to edify women, and I need women to be, I need women to use this, to read this and say, wow, let me examine myself in this relationship I'm in, if it's not a positive relationship. And then obviously there's a faith piece towards the end of the book, when I do have my ultimate transformation and coming to Christ. So, for people who have questioned faith in any part of their life, like the book is not I don't see the book as a Christian book. It's not a Christian book. I didn't write it as a Christian book. It's very vulgar and raw. And I wrote it that way because I wanted how can you have true transformation if you're watering down how your life was, pre-transformation, right? So, I see that with a lot of Christian content where, it's not truthful in the way it's portrayed. It's portrayed as, I was bad, but I wasn't that bad. And then I came to Jesus and he made me good. Or, and so what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to connect with people who were where I was at certain points in my life. So it's raw. I use the language in the book that I used when I wasn't walking with the Lord. I tell stories of my lifestyle before I came to the Lord. And so that, when people who are, again, questioning faith, when they get to that part where I do submit to Christ, they could, say to themselves, wow, like I saw how Remi was for the last 23 chapters and to see this and him change like this, must be something here that maybe I should try, or maybe I should explore, so I kind of wrote that book for the person that, is questioning faith or on the fence or, or maybe even they've had a relationship with Jesus and they fell away and they read it and it re-sparks something within them. So, yeah.
I love that. And I applaud you for taking the step to be completely authentic and letting it all out there, because I completely agree with you that we lack that in Christian culture, people telling the whole truth. Yeah. And so what that does is it causes an environment where Christians feel like they need to hide these things. And, and that we know what happens when things get, kept in the dark or kept hidden, like no one can really deal with it. So I'm really, I'm very encouraged by your story and by you being so authentic and and being committed to telling the story, in complete rawness. I think that's fantastic. So
thank you.
Remi, you don't know Robert and I. He and I have been walking out things together for over a decade, and
nice.
We've been through the ups, the downs, and the uglies. One of the things that we're committed to is being pretty authentic about our stories, and we could definitely identify to some degree with what you're describing, and we've both seen just the dramatic change in life that God can bring to a broken marriage. For me, it was a broken marriage.
Yeah.
For Robert, it had to do with drug abuse and a spouse. And we've seen some really ugly things as pastors, as friends. We've been through some ugly things. We want to encourage you to keep it real, because there is a need for Christian media that is engaging people where they're at and not sugarcoating it, not oversimplifying really difficult moments in someone's life.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We appreciate 100%. You doing that. And one last closing question before we sign off. What's next? What are you up to next?
Wow. Well, I have a lot going on. I've been, before I finished writing the book, because I wrote it myself, I didn't have a ghostwriter or co-writer. I was approached by people in the film and TV industry to turn it into a movie. So over the past few months, it's happening. It's happened more. So I'm like in the last few weeks of making a decision as to, what studio I'm gonna go with for, what production company I'm gonna go with for a TV show or a film. So I'm working on that. I'm also a writer. So, I wrote 2 films that I'm about to start shopping around. I was approached to co-write a film with a production co-write a film at a production company, which I can't really go into detail about it, but it's a pretty awesome story. And then I was just pinged this week to possibly consult on another big film. I just finished a film in December that's going to come out on Netflix in this December. It's called 6 Underground. Ryan Reynolds is the lead, and Corey Hawkins, and it's a bunch of great actors in there. So yeah, man, that's film and TVs. Just keep doing that and keep sharing my story and the gospel when I have time. And I do nonprofit work as well. Working in inner city areas in California and other parts of the country to inspire young people. And I'm in jails and in prisons, so I do that too. So yeah, man, just keep using this body as much as I can before it expires.
Well said.
Awesome.
Well said. Well, we've been talking with Remi Adeleke. He's a Navy SEAL. He's an author. He's an actor. He's a inspiration to a generation of young men who could really use a good role model.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking time, Remi. It was a pleasure and honor to speak with you, and just love what you're doing.
Thank you, brothers. It was a pleasure and honor to be on with you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, man.
Thanks, man.
See you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. God bless.
Bye-bye.
Brad, you know I'm a foodie, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to tell you about this awesome coffee experience. It's called CJ's Coffee Culture and Community. It is a faith-run coffee culture, and the thing that's really cool about this is that they roast their own beans, they have delicious coffees, and they have 2 brick and mortar, so 2 coffee bars, as well as a virtual location at cjscoffeecafe.com. Here's the cool thing. They ship their beans, they ship their coffee anywhere in the world, so you don't just have to be in Texas to enjoy it. CJ's Coffee Culture and Community.
Awesome. Well, that's a genuine movie star.
Fascinating story.
I mean, he's in Transformers, The Last Knight.
Yeah.
He's on SEAL Team television show. And
No, it's incredible, and I love his authenticity and just his boldness. And when you hear his story, it's not a surprise because he's approached everything from this just like.
Well, and you know what I like is he's not really from the church background world,
Right.
So he's using different language than a lot of Christian culture people do.
Yeah.
And it's refreshing.
And you can tell, but you could tell the transformation is real. Like he's had an encounter.
Well, as I was talking to him, I found myself talking like Christian talk, and I'm like, so when did you run out of, when did you come to an end? He's like, nah, dude, I never wanted to give up.
Right.
And then 5 minutes later, he's like, well, when I hit rock bottom. And I'm like, so it's different language, right? So the way he's expressing himself is refreshing. And I really think helpful because we get so tied into the same sort of way of describing stuff that we lose its to edge.
I
It's not as
completely
real.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great conversation.
It was. And I'm sitting there thinking, I know we're not the audience, you and I are not the audience that he's hoping to inspire. He's really in aggressive way trying to reach to the African-American youth and to the
Any youth. I mean, I think, and the other thing that I thought was really fascinating was like, he wants to warn girls about people like him.
That was
like,
a curveball.
That was like,
I was not expecting that.
That's really interesting.
What I was saying is, I know you and I aren't the target audience
Right.
that he's trying to inspire African-American young men, but he's inspired me.
Oh, yeah.
So like, I don't think you have to be an African-American man, a young man, or a single parent to get great inspiration from this.
Yeah.
I do think that we should warn our readers that this is probably not PG, that this writing and style is very authentic to the way things really were for him. And so it's not probably something for young kids or preteens to read, but I do think for parents, especially single parents who may be wondering if this is all going to work out.
Yeah.
The example of a Christian mom who persevered. I mean, he used that word. She had perseverance. Yeah. You can tell it left a huge imprint on his heart.
And I can't help, but we've preached this ad nauseum, but what ages did he go to church?
Yeah.
5 to 13.
5 to 13, yep.
And he wasn't cooperative and he didn't like it or whatever. So parents, as you're raising your kids, what you do is super important before the age of 13. And, after that, it may look rough for a while, but God is faithful. And if the root system is there, it's.
Yeah, I mean, he was sharing about how his brother, who obviously was a believer, told him, when you get
rock bottom,
when you get to the bottom, cry out to Jesus.
Yeah.
I know for me as a parent, looking at my kids, that there have been and are moments where I look at it and go, is this making a difference?
Yeah.
Is this really helpful for me to drag them to church one more time or to really try to get them to pray before a meal or, to take their faith seriously.
Yeah.
It
is.
It is. Yeah. I mean, that's the answer. So I think also for men and sons who are looking for role models of masculinity, this is a surprising bright spot. Mm-hmm. Because right in the middle of all this machismo, right, this guy's a Navy SEAL. He's handsome. He's rugged. He's pulled himself up by his bootstraps, And then when you start hearing him talk about transformed, he's like, I was a womanizer. Mm-hmm. And God changed my heart.
Right. And it was prideful.
You talk about a illustration of the sort of Paul moment, Saul to Paul, mm-hmm. where you're running one direction and God turns you 180 to the next. Man, how many women need to know this is possible?
Yeah.
Right. I thought it was very cool.
Couldn't agree more. It was fantastic. So thank you guys for spending some time with us today. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I know you did too, Brad, and we're so grateful for your support and for continuing to be on this road as we learn more about these stories of people that have faced hard things and are facing hard things and continue to do what God has right in front of them. We take this as an honor, and we'd appreciate it if you leave any comments or as many stars as you can on any podcast platform.
5 stars, Robert. That's not as many as you can. 5. Okay,
well, I'm not self-congratulatory.
I'm not being self-congratulatory. I just want 5 stars.
You're groveling.
5.
Thank you guys for being with us. We'll see you here again next week.
And we, one last thing, Robert, don't close too quick. Okay. All right. We haven't done our positive moment.
I remember that halfway through our conversation. So what's the positive word?
I'm telling you,
Pastor Brad.
We need positive things in our life. I'm sick of the news. So here's the positives. According to a 2014 poll, teen pregnancies and sexual activity are declining. Mm-hmm. They're down 47% over the past 25 years. Can you believe that?
Yes. Along with, substance abuse. And we're seeing less and less teenage drinking. And
so
it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah. You just don't hear these stats very often. You hear all these terrible things that are happening, but this is a positive one. Another one is that high school graduation rates are at record highs.
Can I give you my...
Yes, you can be cynical. It's fine.
It's because we're dumbing down the education system. But I didn't say that. Let's take the good news and leave it there.
Well, I think parents need good news. And so let's listen each week. We're going to give you some positive facts and something to hang on to that's true. And we will be right here next week, Robert and I together.
See you then.
Be encouraged, parents. You are not alone. In Paul's letter to his son in the faith, Timothy, he writes, "But I am not ashamed, for I know whom I have believed, and I am convinced that he is able to guard until that day what has been entrusted to me." Brilliantly Brave Parenting wants to be an encouragement and support that parents can rely on. Would you consider liking us and sharing us with a friend? As a part of the Tween Gospel Alliance, we are a nonprofit organization dependent on the support of friends like you. Thanks for stopping by. We'll be right here next week.
We are excited to announce the Storms of Life study, Living Beyond Stressed Out and Overwhelmed.
It's a great subtitle, Living Beyond Stressed Out and Overwhelmed.
Yeah, at this point, we know that students are stressed. And for parents and pastors, it's important to know what are the top 3 things that are really on the minds of our kids.
So Brad, walk us through what they can expect from the Storms of Life.
This is an 8-week study. It has video insights. It has presentations from an actual youth retreat with junior high and high school students. These kids are going to learn about how their faith can help them fight back the stress that they're living with every day at school.
Check it out on ishinelive.com.
Robert, every parent, every pastor is looking for resources that are new and insightful for their kids.
So true. So where do we go?
Well, with the advent of ishinelive.com, we have a web store. And in that web store, we've got resources.
Like what?
We've got resources like Bibles. We've got devotionals. We even have journals for kids.
Do you have music?
We do have music.
And video?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And everything's been designed for the preteen and tween in your life.
Who needs Amazon? iShineLive.com.
Check it out.